In today's video, I'm going to show you a real simple way to make sure you get your hands back to a similar place they started at address. To really improve your quality of contact, whether we're talking about the irons or the driver, make sure you check out this video. So what I'm trying to work on there with this drill is getting my hands a little bit closer to my body in the downswing. But there's a right position we're looking for. We could get them too close, we could get them too far away. When you do this drill, this particular drill, so I've just got a pool noodle lying across the top of my bag, sticking out near my hands, and I'll talk you through the positioning of that in a minute. I probably over-exaggerated that feel of getting my arms a little bit closer to my body and struck that a little bit towards the toe of the golf club. It wasn't awful, but it lost me a few yards. So I carried that 166, whereas about 10 yards short of where I normally am for a 6-iron carry distance. But I wouldn't worry on the first few, and actually I would tend to start, if I jump straight into a couple, I'd tend to start with some smaller movements. So when you're doing a drill like this, I've just learned, can you get the club back to the ball, and maybe actually just do some little quarter swings first, where you're hopefully going to start to be able to find the middle of the golf club. When you start to trust it, build up the swing length, and you'll be able to go into more of a half swing, a 3/4 swing. So let me just do more of a half one. So I've got good contact there, and I've missed the tubing. Let me move the bag for a second and let's discuss this. Because I said it can be a little bit confusing, and there definitely is a right and a wrong, and we could over-exaggerate one way or another. So if I set up to a golf ball here, and as I said, I'm discussing here with a mid-iron, so this is a 6-iron in my hand. We'll quickly discuss the driver and perhaps the little differences we may see. So that's my handle position at setup. Now what I'd expect to see at impact, the majority of golfers get their hands a little bit higher into impact. There is a slight raising of the handle. Some of the world's best actually manage to get their hands pretty much back to where they were. But a little bit upwards is fine. What I don't want to see is the arms excessively out too far away from the body, which is perhaps the more common fault, and that could cause a heel strike. But the golfers who get their arms too far out in front of them, often coming from this sort of movement where they are very much out to in, too steep on the downswing, they'll then perhaps pull their arms across their body, and they could get the opposite. They could get a toe strike. So for all the world, it's looking like they're going to miss the ball or hit out the heel. But then the compensation is their arms to pull across their body. And then we get that term out to in. So their arms have gone too far out, and then they've got to pull inwards. And obviously what we tend to see from there is bigger fades and slices, potentially a pull to the left for a right-handed golfer if they manage to close the face. But 8 times out of 10, it's more likely to be a slice. So for a right-handed golfer, out to the right of the target. And what we're really looking for is, as I said, your hands to return to a similar position. So they've got to move a little bit out in front of you. So when we're at the top of the golf swing, we cannot just move our hands straight down. However, that might be the right feel for a golfer who's too excessively this way. So they may feel that their arms are dropping. In reality, as soon as they add, so I often get golfers to feel this, but of course, as soon as they add rotation into that, you can see my hands are in a very different position. But that's a good delivery position. We just don't want our arms excessively out in front of us, away from the body, almost disconnecting what my arms are doing to what my body's doing. So my arms have to move a little bit out in front of me to allow that club shaft to shallow, to work a little bit behind me. And effectively, you know, I'm working on this arc shape, so my arms are working, or hands are working in and around, or in, around and up. So they've got to move down, out and around to get to the same sort of position. So my hands do have to go out in front of me. We cannot jam our club into our thigh. But as I said, that may be a feel for some golfers. If that is the feel you're working on because you see those arms excessively moving out, I want you to think about the arms dropping, not pulling. And you may not think there's a difference there. There's a massive difference between those two terms. So dropping the arms or leaving the arms up would feel more like this. Pulling, you tend to get the handle in and the club shaft very steep, very vertical. Whereas when I'm dropping my arms, you can see it's still allowing that club to fall a little bit more behind me. So I don't want to see a pulling movement where we get the grip end down, the shaft very steep, and that tends to cause this cupping angle in the wrist. The club face would excessively be open. So as I said, the arms have to move a little bit out in front of you. Perhaps with this drill, we're talking about the golfer who goes too extreme and gets their arms too far out in front of them at the start of the downswing. So as I said, we're looking for the arms moving a little bit down, a little bit out, and starting to rotate around. So they're working on this arc shape. And if we could return them to a similar position to where we started, that would be ideal. So if I bring this bag back into play, so we'll take a little bit of playing around here. All I've got is a pool noodle, bit of pipe lagging, pipe insulation will do the job as well. It's nice and soft, can lie across your bag, wedge between your golf clubs. There is another option you could use. I've got here the swing plate with an alignment stick in where I could adjust the angle that this is set. I'd still want to put something soft over the end where I'm almost trying to swing underneath that line rather than my arms getting excessively out and hitting the cane, hitting the stick. But something nice and soft lying across your golf bag like a swimming pool noodle would do the trick. And again, start with some small movements just to try and get that confidence up before we're building up the swing. So I have to give myself some space. You will see it set up here. But I'm just trying to feel like, can I get the club back to the ball and miss that noodle? And you can see my hands are getting within a couple of it, probably an inch and a half or so of that noodle. So this is going to work really well for those golfers who are getting their arms excessively out. Initially, you may overcompensate. You might feel there's a little bit of tightness, tension, just because you don't want to hit the noodle, and we're going to expect some toe strikes. But if you can start with a small move and build it up. So I'm just going to rehearse that move. My arms are moving. You can see in front of me, but not excessively. So they're returning to a similar position they started to be able to make contact with that golf ball. That's really just going to help this centerness of strike. And when my arms are a little bit more connected to what my body's doing, it really just helps that release movement. Where our arms are excessively out, it's a little bit harder to control and to sync what our arms are doing to what our body is doing. Okay, so that was actually a good example. I hit that noodle. So I felt like I had enough space there, but you can see obviously my arms have just got a little bit out in front of me, perhaps a little bit too far. Maybe I'd made it a little tough. So there's a bit of playing around there to be done to get the right angle. I've just got the golf ball a little bit ahead of the noodle, which I know we won't quite see from this camera angle, but it just means I can still see the ball. So I don't want the noodle over the golf ball where I can't see it at all. So I can see the golf ball there. It is a little bit off-putting because if my head, I mean, this can actually work quite well if you've got someone who's excessively moving off the golf ball, because where they see the ball is actually going to change. At the minute it's in front of the noodle, if I excessively move, not that we're talking about it really in this video, the ball would change. So, you know, if you're someone who's actually swaying, you could use this to really help, but it is a little off-putting. It is going to change that sort of field of vision, but I'm just trying to get the confidence that I can get my arms to miss the noodle and still hit the golf ball. So that felt very good. I just missed the noodle. I don't know how close, but I missed the noodle, no contact whatsoever. And actually I got good distance on that one. Hit a little push draw. It felt like I got the ball out the center of the golf club. I mean, obviously it is worth looking at centerness of strike, whether you just spray the face with some foot spray just to look at that, or put some tape on the face just to look at contact point. With my launch monitor, I can actually start to measure that with these dots on the head with my HMT. I can look at strike location and just see that that ball was out the middle of the golf club. But feedback that you can get there, rather than just relying on the sound and the feel, you know, that visual feedback is actually quite critical with this one, because the aim of the game when we're talking about getting our arms into the right position is being able to get the club back to the ball and hit the ball out the center of the golf club. Now, I did say I'd discuss the driver. There's not huge changes there, but I would expect my hands to be a little bit further in front of me at setup. So where my arms would hopefully be hanging almost at 90 degrees straight down from the middle of my shoulder joint there, with an iron, I'd expect my hands to be out by about 5 degrees. So this angle, instead of 90, outwards by about 85. Okay, so I'd expect my arms to be a little bit more in front of me with the driver, but again, I'm looking for them to return in a similar position. So although the gap between the end of the club and my body is slightly greater with a driver than it is with an iron because of my arm hang, the actual returning position should be about the same as we were at setup again. So the pool noodle trick, you know, that whatever you can lie pipe lagging across the golf bag is still going to have the same effect. Can you hit the golf ball? Obviously, I'm not going to go into the setup of this, but can I hit that golf ball and miss the noodle? Same trick, start with small actions, build the swing length up. It's really going to help your quality of contact, and although it is quite an off-putting drill for the first few, I think if you start with those small movements and build up the swing to get that confidence, it's going to help you. Let me know how you get on with that exercise. It'd be great to have some comments below if it has helped you. Hit the thumbs up to this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, at least 2 instructional videos a week. Right now, YouTube is suggesting the next video of mine that's relevant for you, and it is just here, so click on that at the same time.